Welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. Are you over 40 and tired of struggling with your weight? Do you feel like you're constantly starting over with your nutrition and fitness? I'm Lil, a certified nutrition coach and former registered nurse, and I too have been there. At the age of 44, I decided I was done with being stuck in the vicious diet cycle. I became a nutrition coach and created the Feel Your Best Formula for women who are ready to do things differently. If you're ready to build a better relationship with food, get your energy back, build muscle, lose fat, and keep it off for good, then you're in the right place. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's build your formula for feeling your best. Hello, welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. My name is Lil, and today I think is going to be very eye-opening for some of you. What we're going to talk about here, especially if you're someone who has been struggling and just feeling frustrated. I know that is the main reason a lot of people come here to listen to this podcast is because you feel like you're doing all the right things, but you're not seeing results and you're not understanding why. So we're going to dive right in because I do want to cover quite a few things here. But before we dive into the quote reasons or the common obstacles that I see as a coach in my clients, I really want to highlight this one very, very important thing that everyone needs to have if they are truly serious about creating sustainable results and actually changing the person that you are and becoming the person that you want to be. You have to have patience when it comes to everything that we talk about here today. You have to have patience and understand that you're going to go through the process in the time that you need to, and skipping over and shortcutting things often just leads you right back to where you are, feeling frustrated and not creating long-term change. So as we go through this episode, I want you to kind of have the word patience floating around in your head so that you understand there is nothing wrong with you if it takes you a little bit longer to work through your relationship with food. If it takes you a little bit longer to lose 20 pounds than, say, your neighbor or your best friend or your sister. You have to have the courage to really look at yourself in your life and figure out what you need to do to put your blinders on and just stay in your own lane and focus on yourself. There are many common reasons why we have I guess I'll just say it, a weight problem in our country. I live in the United States, in many other countries. It's because people are eating too much food, eating more calories than their body needs, and they're obviously not moving enough or not working out enough to counteract that overeating. But that's really simplifying things. And the real reason is because there's something inside of us that we need to overcome so we can actually start taking action in a world that in many ways sets us up for failure. So have patience with yourself. Understand that what you need to do and the pace that you do it at is going to be individualized to you, and focusing on yourself is the best thing you can do to get results for yourself. All right, so let's start us off with talking about the number one reason why you're not losing weight. And it is because you are winging it when it comes to your nutrition. I know this because I often receive messages and someone will reach out to me and say, Lil, can you help me? I'm working out 5 days a week. I'm eating really clean. I'm trying to eat more protein, but I'm just not losing any weight. I'm stuck. I'm not getting results. And the thing is, saying things like, oh, I'm eating clean, or I'm eating healthy, or I'm trying to eat more protein, you have to understand this is super vague. You could eat a diet that is 100% quote unquote clean and still gain weight, because it doesn't really matter the quality of your foods. It does matter. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but at the end of the day, ultimately your body is going to decide to gain or lose weight simply based on the amount of calories that you're eating. So you could be overeating on quinoa and brown rice and salmon and all the healthy foods, avocado, and you could just be getting way too many calories and not even realize it, because you think that the quality of your food and eating clean is more important than actually looking at what your food is made of in terms of macronutrients and calories. So I know when someone reaches out to me and says, oh, I'm so frustrated, I eat so healthy, and I'm not really eating much food. That's another one too. Like, I'm barely eating anything. Okay, never in the history of the world have people gained weight by eating less calories than their body requires. Even if you do have an issue with your thyroid or another metabolic issue that slows down your metabolism, at the end of the day, it's only changing your body's metabolic requirements. And if you're eating more calories than your body is requiring at that time, then you're going to gain weight. Never in the history of mammals existing on the planet, and you are a mammal, you're an animal, has someone gained weight because they're eating too little calories. You never ever are going to see someone in, a developing country that doesn't have access to enough nutrition being overweight because they were eating less calories. This is a weird thing that somehow got popular on social media, trying to convince us that the reason we're gaining weight is because we're not eating enough food. You might not be eating a large volume of food, and instead you're eating food that has a very large amount of calories in a very small volume of food. And that is more likely what is happening. It's very, very easy to overeat on calories with calorie dense foods like cake, ice cream, chips. Even an acai bowl that you might think is really healthy can have 800, 900, 1,000 calories in it because it has a ton of sugar. So this is why counting macros is just so helpful when you're trying to move away from feeling frustrated. You really have to educate yourself and understand what you are putting in your body. And you don't have to track forever. Even if you just tracked your food for a couple weeks, you would be able to see the gaps or the areas where you're having way too many carbs or fats and not enough protein. It's very eye-opening to start tracking your foods. So I know the difference when someone reaches out and they're kind of vague with what their nutrition is. I know they're kind of winging it, versus someone who messages me and they say, listen, this is how many calories I'm eating. This is how many grams of protein I'm eating. This is the app that I'm using to track my foods. This is what a typical meal looks like. I know that person is not winging it with their nutrition. And even though they might be doing a lot of things that are helpful, they still might be having some gaps in there, things that they can't see, some blind spots. And that's why having a coach is so helpful, because someone like me can look at what you're doing and just immediately see, okay, this is something we want to change. This is something we want to swap out. This is something maybe we should stop doing entirely. And most importantly, let's start adding in this type of thing that's going to help you, number one, feel better, but also it's going to help you understand why you're not getting the results that you are, because you had a gap there. So there can be a major disconnect between what you think your habits are and the direction that you think or feel entitled to the results. You feel like you're working hard, that you're doing things right. But in reality, if you don't look at the data, the numbers, the cold hard facts, you can totally be way off base on the type of expectation that you have based on the habits that you have day after day. So the best thing about no longer winging your nutrition is you can actually start working towards your goals and your results. And you can have the confidence, okay, if I just do this, I'm finally going to stop being frustrated. And the sad thing is that most people out there don't have the knowledge or the education, and you're just winging it because you saw a post on Instagram, or you read a blog post, or you saw a video on YouTube, or your friend said they're eating 1,800 calories a day. What other people are doing is completely irrelevant to you, and that's why having a personalized plan created by someone who actually understands how to get you the results you want is such an incredible investment. Okay, so number one, the reason you're not getting results and you're frustrated is because you're winging it with your nutrition, no matter how healthy you think you're eating, or maybe you're restricting a lot of things. At the end of the day, if you're not actually looking at the details of the quality and the quantity of the foods that you're eating, and you're just guesstimating all the time, then you're going to continue to be frustrated. I think a lot of us can get a little scared or nervous or overwhelmed when it comes to being more committed about our nutrition. And that's why something like tracking macros is something I encourage people to do. If you're nervous to track your food and see those numbers, then that should tell you that something's going on here, and maybe you need to speak to a professional. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like the scale, where I tell you, if you have a lousy relationship with the scale, avoiding it and ignoring it isn't necessarily the best solution to overcoming it. It's allowing you to continue to have that poor relationship with food. And there's certainly situations where someone with a history of an eating disorder, it could be very triggering for them to count macros. But for the majority of us who have just spent time flitting from one diet plan to another, not really understanding nutrition, not really understanding why we're restricting or cutting out certain foods or eating a certain way based on the rules of our diet, counting macros can be the most empowering and knowledge building action that you take when it comes to moving away from frustration. So, like I said, even just doing this for a couple weeks can be incredibly eye-opening and help you understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling. When it comes to nutrition, this is where you really need to decide if you are interested or committed. I've talked about this before on the podcast, but someone who's interested in making change spends a lot of time learning, dabbling, probably scrolling on Instagram, watching videos, maybe even reading books, talking about the change that they want to make, but they don't actually take action in a meaningful way. They often jump from one thing to the next and don't really give enough time for the habits that they're choosing to take root and help them see the change that they seek. It's a very different mindset when you go from being interested to becoming someone who is committed. Someone who's committed is very aware of how their habits are affecting the outcome. And they're also very honest with themselves and their commitment to the process. Someone who's committed is going to have that patience that we talked about at the beginning of the episode. And you could be really committed to your workouts and pushing yourself really hard and training 5, 6, or even 7 days a week. But if you're undereating or overeating, or your macros are just way out of balance and you're not nourishing your body correctly, your energy levels are going to be all over the place. Your hormones are going to be affected in a negative way. And getting your nutrition right is truly the foundation for building the habits that create the results you want. And that's why I have my clients start with their nutrition and we build on your habits from there. Okay, so we started off with winging your nutrition. Now let's move on to the second reason you are not getting results, even though you feel like you're doing a lot of things. It's most likely because you may not have an actual awareness of the activity level that you're actually living each and every day. Your activity level and your fitness both work in conjunction with your nutrition. It's all connected. And a lot of diet programs or boot camps that you sign up for, they pretty much just focus on you got to eat this and then you have to do this workout. And they may not even address what your overall activity level looks like on a day-to-day basis. And the truth is, your daily activity level, the amount of steps that you get in each day, the amount that you're moving, doing chores, hobbies, all of those things add up and they create a higher caloric need in your body. Basically, your body's going to burn more calories the more active you are. Makes sense, right? But if you have a very sedentary job and you're killing yourself at a boot camp every day for an hour, sure, maybe you're burning a couple hundred, few hundred calories during that boot camp. But guess what? Your activity level during the day is a larger portion of your body's caloric burn during the day. Your body uses the most calories just to keep you alive, keep your heart beating, your respiratory system working, all those little metabolic functions that are going on at every moment of the day in your body. That is what your body needs calories for the most. And then after that, it's your activity level and how much you're moving. And are you going for walks? And are you doing chores? And are you just generally speaking more someone that moves a lot, or are you someone that sits a lot? Your daily workout is a much smaller piece of that calorie burning pie. And the amount of calories that you can burn in an hour is much less than the amount of food that you can eat. You can easily eat back a few hundred calories, and then that energy balance is way off. So you really need to understand that it's not just about your workouts and your food. It's also about your overall activity level. And so if you have a very sedentary desk job and you're doing a really hard workout, you're still pretty sedentary. You're not a super active person, even if you kill yourself at your workout. And then what about the days you don't work out? Are you getting out and walking? Are you moving around? And wearing something like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch, I wear an Apple Watch, it can just be eye-opening for you, because that is something that I never paid attention to for years and years and years, until about 2.5 years ago. I just never really paid attention to how much I was moving. And once I did, it just gave me a lot of clarity on how to build the habits that were just going to make me feel better. And I will tell you, once you start moving more, you sleep better, you have more energy overall, and it is just a huge piece of the puzzle. And if you are ignoring it, you are going to struggle and be frustrated. Okay, so that was number 2, having an accurate understanding of what your activity level really looks like. Number 3, this is something that's very common to the all in or all out mentality. And this might be something that you're doing on a very micro level, or it could be something that you're doing on a very large macro level. So, for example, if you're doing this on a smaller, more micro level, I would say during your week, you might be all in with your habits Monday through Thursday or Friday. I'm saying Friday is questionable because Friday night might be a night you go to watch your kid's soccer game, you go out to the bar area, like where my son played indoor soccer, they had a bar that overlooked the soccer fields. And you go up and you have a couple of beers, which I know plenty of people do. And then, you're drinking 600, 700, 800, 1,000 extra calories in your day on a Friday night. So maybe Monday through Thursday, maybe Monday through Friday, you're all in with what you consider to be your healthy habits, where maybe you're restricting or you're counting your calories or you're counting your macros. But then when the weekend comes, this all in or all out mentality is rearing its head because you're out on the weekends. You're all in during the week, and then the weekends, you're unplanned, you're doing a lot of takeout or drive through or going out to dinner or social events. And I'm not saying like you can't do those things and be healthy. That would be so far from the truth. But you have to have an understanding that if you want to have a truly balanced, sustainable way of doing things, that it can't be, super restrictive and then completely off the wall. You could say, okay, I'm going to have a certain amount of calories during the week, and then I'm going to kind of save some extra calories for the weekend. You can totally do that. But if you're working really hard, stressing yourself out and feeling like you're doing all these things to diet and exercise right during the certain time of the week, and then other times it just completely, mindless and just eating whatever you want and not sticking to those same habits that you have earlier in the week, then you can easily throw off any results that you got Monday through Thursday. I read a study one time that said, when they just had people track their weight in Thursdays every single day. This was just a study on like weight tracking, and every single day of the week. And Thursdays was always the lowest weight of the week, because every single person, whether they considered themselves to have like super healthy, strict, habits, or if they didn't, really pay attention at all, most people tended to make better choices or be more mindful from Monday through Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the scale would go up because they would just be, eating more foods that they don't eat during the week. And I just thought that was really interesting. And that's why weighing yourself every day goes hand in hand with all of this. Like, it is just so informative, so you can just see those patterns on the scale. So when I talk about having an all in or all out mentality being a huge reason why you're not seeing results, even though you think you're working hard, that's what it looks like on a micro level, where day to day, on a weekly basis, you're just having these wild fluctuations of the amount of calories you're consuming, the amount that you're moving, the amount of alcohol you're drinking, the amount of water you're drinking, the amount of sleep you're getting. There just isn't really consistency throughout the week. So on a more macro level, and this is more where I often found myself before I started doing what I'm doing now, is I would be all in for 21 days or 60 days or 90 days. And it would just be like, this is my life, and I'm following this diet, and I'm doing these workouts, and I'm sticking to it to a T. And it would be all consuming. And it would be exhausting. And I would get to the end, I would push myself, because it can be fun challenging yourself, right? But I would get to the end of whatever that program was, and I would be like, oh my God, I am so done. I cannot wait to go have a big spaghetti dinner. Cannot wait to have a burger and fries. And then it would just be a good week, 2 weeks, a month of just completely eating with no regard, because I was so burnt out. That's the problem. I was burnt out on dieting. And also, I've talked about it before, but, messing with your system by over dieting is not good. And so it would be an all out, all in mentality, but over a larger scale of time. And, you might be someone that's doing it on a day-to-day basis, or you might be someone who's doing it more on a, few months here, you're all in with your habits, and then you stop doing what you're doing and you go back to doing what you were doing before you started the boot camp or the diet program or whatever. And that's how we end up in this vicious cycle. And that's why understanding balance and understanding that building a day, a week, a month, a year, where pretty much any day of the week, your habits are going to look pretty similar, where it isn't going to be, I'm on a diet. I never want my clients, if someone says to them, like, oh, why are you tracking your food or whatever? I don't ever want my clients' response to be, oh, I'm on a diet. Because they're not. They're learning how to eat for what their bodies need. And they might be in a calorie deficit, which is a form of dieting, but it is meant to be sustainable, where they're going to reach their goals and then they're going to go back into maintenance. They're not going to end up having this all in or all out mentality. And yes, of course, you can have vacations and social events and all these things where you might overeat on occasion or indulge on occasion. But at the end of the day, you're not having wild fluctuations in your body fat and your weight and all those things that make us frustrated and feel like we just constantly have to keep starting over. It's about just deciding who you want to be. And once you decide who you are that person no matter where you are in space and time, whether you're on vacation or it's just a normal work day, you are that same person. And feeling empowered to make the choices that you can feel good about when you do decide, hey, I'm going to overeat on this because this is just something that I really enjoy. This is a really special occasion. And understanding that doing that once in a while has absolutely no bearing on your long-term outcome, versus having it be this whole mental game where when you're all in, you feel good about yourself, and when you're all out, you feel lousy about yourself and constantly feel that urge or that need to get back on a diet. It's like we're either on a diet or we feel like we need to be on a diet, and that is no way to live. That is not balance. Okay, reason number 4, why you're struggling to get results, and it's kind of similar to number 3. But when it comes to alcohol, there can be a lot of denial and there's a lot of misunderstanding as to how much you're actually drinking, how many calories you're actually consuming when you have an alcoholic drink. Do you understand what 3 ounces looks like for a glass of wine? Do you understand how many calories are in that 20-ounce, glass of beer? And often when it comes to alcohol, it's just sort of like, we're not even going to think about that. We're just going to enjoy our drinks. And we're not even going to acknowledge that this has a huge impact on those results that we say we want to have. And yes, you can fit alcohol into your habits if that's something that's important to you. But if you're going to do that, then you have to get really clear about what an actual serving of alcohol looks like, how many calories are in it, how you're going to track it, and do it in a healthy way. But if you're going to be having huge glasses of wine, cocktails that have a ton of extra sugar and calories, or you're going to overconsume alcohol to the point where you start not having the best decision-making skills. And then next thing you know, you're, arm deep in a bag of chips, or you're at the pizza place at midnight or whatever. Just understanding that alcohol can have a very negative ripple effect on other habits that affect us getting the results that we want. Alcohol can inhibit muscle protein synthesis. So if you're trying to get toned, alcohol can put the brakes on your body's ability to build muscle. There's just all kinds of ways that alcohol hurts your system. It's a poison. So when you're drinking alcohol, your body just goes all hands on deck. The only thing we need to do right now is to rid our body of this poison, and it stops doing the other things that can be helpful when it comes to digesting the better quality calories from other types of foods. So it can affect sleep. There's all kinds of things that alcohol can bring you as far as results that you don't want. And if it is that important to you that you want to include it, then you got to get honest. You got to probably take out a measuring cup so that you can at least have an understanding of what that serving looks like. And you got to track it. And again, you don't have to do this forever, but you got to do it in the beginning, because I'm guessing that right now you just don't really have any idea what you're consuming. And if you're confused as to why you're not getting results, and on the weekends you're having 3 glasses of wine with dinner, or maybe even every single night during the week you're having 1 or 2 glasses of wine, those are a lot of calories that are going to add up over the course of the week. So if you're not including them in your tracking, and you're not including them in your honesty about what you're actually eating and drinking, then yeah, you're gonna be confused as to why you're not getting results. And again, that can be related to number 3, the all in or all out mentality, where people do dry January, which I've said before, it's just like a weird thing to me. I don't really understand the dry January. I think if you want to decrease or stop drinking alcohol, then just decrease and stop drinking it. I don't understand why it has to be like a challenge or a 30-day thing. I feel like that's for someone that doesn't really want to give it up, or someone in a really wonderful way could use it as a way to realize, hey, I don't need this anymore, and actually completely quit it. But I think anytime you have a temporary time limit on a habit, it's kind of you saying that it's not that important to you to quit. And better way of approaching it, if you know that ultimately you do always want to include alcohol in some way, is just to learn how to find that balance off the bat, again, by tracking. All right, let's move on to reason number 5, our final reason why you're struggling to lose weight and you're frustrated. And I actually have an entire podcast episode dedicated to this called The Beginner's Trap. But simply put, it's because you keep trying to lose weight and you think you can create sustainable weight loss by continuing to go back to your old ways of doing things, even though they have proven to you time and time and time and time again that it's not sustainable. So you could think to yourself, oh, I lost 20 pounds last time I did Whole30, or last time I did keto, or last time I did intermittent fasting. And you'll be like, I got results, it worked for me. But the truth is, it didn't work for you because you ended up right back where you are. The only time you can say that something actually worked for you is when you can sustain it for a reasonable amount of time. I'm talking 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And there are so many people out there that have done that have lost massive amounts of weight, 100 pounds or more, and sustained it because the only way they're sustaining it is because they figured out what worked for them. But if you just keep trying to go back to the things that helped you lose 20 pounds here and there, and yet you keep finding yourself back in the same place, it's obvious that those methods were not sustainable for you. I was looking through old photos on my Facebook the other day because I haven't been on Facebook in a really long time. And I was looking at my old business page. I came across a photo of when I did this detox cleanse that I used to do like once a year. It's a 21-day cleanse. And my post was like, I'm all excited because I lost 13 pounds in 21 days. And I looked at the pictures and I just, oh my goodness, the way I felt when I looked at that picture, it made me nauseous because all I could think was, I lost 13 pounds in 21 days. And let me tell you, I was not overweight to begin with before I started this detox. weight loss should not have even been on my radar at that point. I should have been working to build muscle and eat. And this detox, you're eating like 1,000 to like 1,200 calories per day. You get to a point where you're not eating barely any protein because you cut out all meat. And yeah, I lost weight, but you know what else I lost? Muscle. And I will tell you, that's the most weight I've ever lost in 3 weeks. And now that I can look back on it with the knowledge that I have today, I know that was nothing to be proud of. It was nothing to be happy about. And I feel bad for that version of myself because I remember I lost the 13 pounds. I think, I gained back like 10 of it pretty quickly. And I didn't understand why I couldn't sustain it. Well, yeah, eating that amount of food, eating that low calorie, it is not good. And, it's like everyone around me was celebrating, like, oh my gosh, you lost all this weight. And like, I was so excited. And then it's so deflating because obviously I didn't keep it off. So I would still go back and do that. I think I did that program like 3 or 4 times, and I would do it once a year or so, and I would lose weight. The first time I did it, I lost the 13 pounds. I never lost that much weight with it again. And I kept going back to it because it's like that weight loss gives you this false sense of success. And now I know I just lost massive amounts of muscle doing that program because you don't resistance train, you don't eat protein, and you don't eat enough calories. The 3 things required to, at minimum, maintain your muscle. At minimum, maintain it. So I absolutely lost muscle doing that program, and I will never do anything like that again. I felt good in certain ways doing that program, but it was very detrimental on my journey to, ultimately I wanted to be toned, and losing muscle in any capacity is completely counterintuitive to getting that toned look that you want. You have to build the muscle, and then you have to maintain the muscle while you lose fat. And weight loss alone is not success. That is not telling you a story of success. So I totally get it. I totally understand why you might be tempted to go back and do XYZ diet again because you felt like it worked for you. You want to sign up for that boot camp again because it worked for you 3 years ago. Well, it didn't, because you couldn't keep doing the bare minimum, that you needed to do to maintain it. You probably did something very complex that probably consumed your life, that took over your day-to-day life for a certain amount of time. And that's why you're able to get results, but you weren't able to scale that back and just do at least the bare minimum to continue the habits needed so that you would have felt better and you wouldn't end up where you are feeling like you need to start over again. So what do we do if we are truly serious about making change and getting results? I mean, the Feel Your Best Formula podcast is dedicated to trying to explain this process to you. But if I was to sum it up in just one sentence, I would say just start counting your macros and start lifting some weights. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Start doing those 2 things, and also pick up your smartphone and figure out how much activity you're getting on a daily basis. How much are you walking? How much are you moving? If you're not even walking 5,000 steps per day, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're not doing your cardiovascular health any favors. But it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to sign up for some complicated program. You don't even need to hire a coach in the beginning. Most of my clients, actually, I would say 100% of my clients, were already tracking macros and already starting to do things on their own before they signed up with me. And then they hired me because they just knew their knowledge kind of had a bit of a ceiling on it. And also they wanted someone to, walk hand in hand with on this journey that they are on. So you don't have to do anything crazy. If you're done with being interested and you're ready to be committed, then just start getting honest about what you're doing right now, because you can't make any change. You can't even start making a plan for change until you understand how what you're doing right now is affecting your body and how it's affecting your life. Okay, I think that's it. We are wrapping up the 5 reasons that you aren't losing weight, even though you feel like you're doing a lot of work and you feel like you're doing things right. So I'll just review it here. Winging it when it comes to nutrition, not paying attention to overall activity level, letting your weekends or entire months be an all-in or all-out mentality instead of creating balance and consistency, ignoring and not being truthful about how your alcohol consumption might be affecting your results, and continuing to go back to old methods and diets that have just continued to prove to you that they don't work for you, but you're chasing that feeling that you felt when you did feel you were successful with it. So if you can relate to any of the things that I discussed here, I hope that this episode helped open your eyes and that you can start taking the next steps that you need to take so that you can start feeling better, because ultimately that's what it's all about. I want you to feel your best. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you back here next week. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. If you enjoyed the information and discussion we had here today, then make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If you're serious about making changes with your nutrition and fitness, then you definitely want to join my weekly newsletter list as well. You can find the link below and more information in the episode details. That's all for today, and we will see you back here next week for a new episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast.